Alex, I was out back yesterday digging through that might need it someday pile of steel, and I found the first thing I ever welded. It was supposed to be a bracket for a tractor muffler. It looked like a colony of silver-plated fire ants had a very disorganized meeting on a piece of pipe.
That's a vivid image. I take it the muffler didn't stay on long?
It vibrated off before I even got the tractor out of the shed. But it reminded me of that specific flavor of frustration you feel when you're starting out. You've got the heat, you've got the metal, but you're basically trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer because you picked the wrong process for the job.
Which is exactly what we're tackling today. Every time someone walks into a big box store or looks at a catalog, they see MIG, TIG, stick, and it's like a secret code. If you're a hobbyist or looking to get serious, picking the wrong machine is a really expensive way to get discouraged.
It really is. It's like buying a Ferrari to haul hay. Sure, it's a car, but you're going to have a miserable Tuesday.
Let's start with the one most people see first, MIG. Or, if we're being fancy, gas metal arc welding. Everyone says it's the point and shoot of the welding world. Is it really that easy, or is that just marketing fluff?
It's the closest thing we have to a hot glue gun for steel. You've got a spool of wire that feeds through the gun, you pull the trigger, and as long as your settings aren't completely out in left field, you're making a bead. It's fantastic for those I need this fixed by lunch projects.
But there's a catch, right? I've seen your MIG welds when you're in a rush. They look great, but then you spend 20 minutes cleaning up these tiny little metal BBs everywhere.
Ah, the spatter. Yeah, MIG is a bit of a messy roommate, and the biggest hurdle people don't realize is the wind. If you try to MIG weld a gate outside on a breezy day, your shielding gas, that's the stuff that keeps the oxygen from ruining your molten metal, just drifts away. Suddenly, your weld has more holes in it than a Swiss cheese factory.
So, great for the shop, bad for the driveway. What about the metal itself? Can I just grab any old rusty pipe and start zapping?
You could, but you'd regret it. MIG is a bit of a prima donna when it comes to hygiene. If there's paint, rust, or even just a bit of oily film from the factory, the arc starts stuttering and spitting at you. You have to get that metal shining like a new dime before you even think about pulling the trigger.
Okay, so if MIG is the point and shoot, let's talk about the one that looks like art. TIG. Every time I see a TIG weld on Instagram, it looks like a stack of dimes. It's beautiful. But why does everyone act like you need a PhD to do it?
Because TIG asks you to do three things at once with only two hands. One hand is holding the torch, that's your heat. The other hand is dabbing in a filler rod, that's your metal. And usually your right foot is on a pedal controlling the temperature. It's like trying to play the drums while decorating a wedding cake.
That sounds like a recipe for a very smoky kitchen.
It's the ultimate control freaks process. If you're working on something delicate, like a thin aluminum radiator or a custom stainless exhaust, TIG is the only way to go. You can put the heat exactly where you want it and not a hair further. But it's slow. My goodness, is it slow. If MIG is a sprint, TIG is a Sunday stroll where you stop to look at every flower.
And the equipment isn't exactly budget-friendly, is it?
No, you're paying for that precision. Between the high-frequency electronics in the machine and the price of pure argon gas, you're definitely making an investment. Plus, you will sharpen enough tungsten electrodes to lose your mind. You touch that tip to the molten pool just once, and back to the grinder you go.
That brings us to the old guard, stick welding. It's loud, it's smoky, and it looks like something from a shipyard in the 1940s. Is it even still relevant for a modern maker?
Stick is the honey badger of welding. It simply does not care. You want to weld a rusty tractor frame in a rainstorm? Stick will do it. You've got a 1/4 inch of old farm paint on a beam? Stick will burn right through it and ask for seconds.
It sounds aggressive.
It is. It's shielded metal arc welding, but stick is much more honest. You've got this rod that's basically a piece of core wire wrapped in a crusty coating. That coating melts and creates its own little cloud of gas to protect the weld. That's why it works in the wind.
But the cleanup, I've seen you chipping away at that glass-like layer on top of the weld.
The slag. Yeah, that's the tax you pay for the convenience. You finish the weld, then you have to get out the hammer and beat the crust off. And for a beginner, the hardest part isn't the welding, it's the starting. It's like trying to light a match on a wet rock. You stick the rod to the plate, it hums, it glows red, and you're standing there yanking on it like a sword in the stone.
I've watched you do that stuck rod dance. It's very entertaining from a distance.
I'm sure it is.
Let's get practical then. If someone is listening and they've got $500 and a dream, which way are we leaning?
It depends on what that dream is made of. If you're building furniture, tables, lamps, maybe a go-kart frame, get a MIG. It's forgiving, it's fast, and you'll actually enjoy the process instead of fighting it,
Even with the gas bottle?
even with the bottle. Now, there is flux core, which is basically MIG without the gas tank, but that's a whole different animal. It's like MIG's rowdy cousin who leaves footprints on the couch. It's great for outdoor repairs, but for pretty indoor stuff, stick with the gas.
And if they want to build, say, a custom turbo manifold for their car or a high-end bicycle frame?
Then you bite the bullet and go, TIG. You have to be okay with the learning curve, though. You're going to spend the first 10 hours just staring through the helmet, wondering why your filler rod keeps sticking to your electrode. But the reward is a weld that doesn't just hold, it looks like it was grown there.
What about the person who just wants to fix their lawnmower deck or build a heavy-duty workbench out of old scrap they found in a field?
Stick welding, hands down, it's the cheapest entry point. You can get a decent cracker box welder for the price of a nice dinner out, and it'll weld metal thick enough to hold up a bridge. It's not elegant, and your neighbors might wonder why your garage sounds like a lightning storm, but it gets the job done.
I think my neighbors already think that about you anyway.
Fair point.
Before we wrap up, you always say there's one mistake every beginner makes, regardless of which machine they buy.
They forget that the welder is only performing the last 5% of the job. People buy a $3,000 TIG machine and wonder why their welds look like garbage, and it's because they cut the metal with a hacksaw and didn't square the edges.
So it's the prep work.
It's all in the fit up. If you have a massive gap in your joint, no amount of fancy electronics is going to save you. Welding is essentially just melting two things into one. If they don't want to be melted together because they're covered in grease or they're an inch apart, you're just making a mess.
Speaking of messes, you owe me a story. You mentioned that muffler bracket at the start, but I feel like there was a phase 2 to that disaster involving your boots.
I was welding that bracket, stick welding naturally, and a glob of molten slag, about the size of a marble, popped off and landed right in the tongue of my boot.
Oh no.
Now, the thing about welding is you're supposed to keep a steady hand. But when your left foot is suddenly being branded, steady isn't the first word that comes to mind. I did a sort of hopping pirouette, knocked over my shielding gas tank, which wasn't chained up like it should have been, and the regulator snapped off.
Please tell me it didn't turn into a rocket.
It stayed put, thank goodness, but the hiss was loud enough to wake the dead. I'm standing there, one foot smoking, gas screaming, and my dad just walks into the shop, looks at the mess, looks at me, and says, well, at least the muffler's still on.
Was it?
It was, for 10 more seconds, then it fell.
I think the takeaway here is that there's no best welder. There's just the one that fits the metal in front of you.
Exactly. Don't get paralyzed by the acronyms. Whether it's the speed of MIG, the finesse of TIG, or the raw grit of stick, the point is to stop thinking about it and start melting metal. You're going to make some ugly beads. You might even burn a hole in your sock. But eventually, you stop fighting the machine and start making things that actually stay together. And that's a pretty great feeling.